I am going to tell you about the summer the neighborhood tyrant tried to claim my backyard pool like it was a public park, and how the whole thing flipped on her faster than a belly flop off the diving board. If you have ever dealt with someone who mistakes bossiness for authority, pull up a chair because this one still makes the hair on my arms stand up. The first time I found her in my pool, I thought I was hallucinating from the heat. It was late afternoon in Cedar Mesa, sun laying a white sheet over everything. And there she was, a woman I barely knew, floating in a glittery inner tube like a queen on a river barge. Her sunglasses flashed. She raised a hand like she was greeting. A fan and two of her friends were stretched out on my chairs sipping white wine as if they were at a resort I forgot I owned. I set my toolbox down very carefully because my hands wanted to do something I would regret, and I said, calm as I could, "You are trespassing." She laughed, kicked her feet, and said, "The whole neighborhood can use this if I say so." That line told me everything I needed to know about how the rest of the week would go. I am Lucas Reed, former Army mechanic, now a guy who fixes things people break when they do not read manuals. I bought this place in March, closed in April, had the deed updated in May. It was a simple ranch with a cracked patio and a pool that needed work, the kind of money pit you talk yourself into because you can see the bones of something better. My sister Mia helped me move in. She said the water alone made the whole decision worth it, and we promised the first cannonball would be mine. Little did we know I would be defending that cannonball like a castle wall. Back to the floating queen. She finally climbed out, water slapping off the concrete, walked right up to me and poked my chest with a wet finger. "You will regret messing with me," she said, loud enough so her friends could hear. I kept my face steady and told her, "No, Madison, you are going to regret underestimating me." The only reason I knew her name was she had introduced herself the week I moved in as the person who keeps this street in order. No title. No board, just a person who likes the feeling of people stepping, aside when she walks by. The next morning I woke to the slap of water again. I looked out and nearly swallowed my tongue. She had dragged in two kids from down the block who were not even related to her, one of them launching cannonballs into the deep end while she floated on a pink flamingo. She waved at me like we were neighbors on good terms. Then she did it. She took out a laminated piece of paper, stuck it to my patio door with clear tape, and shouted that by order of the association this pool was open to the community. The thing had spelling mistakes and a fake seal that looked like it was made by a clip art program from 2003. I stared at it and felt the kind of quiet that is dangerous. If you let that kind of thing slide, it multiplies. I told her to leave. She told me to call whoever I wanted. She said the association backs me up. You are just the outsider here. That word outsider hit harder than I expected. I served with people from places I could not pronounce when I was 19. I have spilled oil on airfields in 6 countries to keep old engines running, and I have never felt like an outsider with folks who judged you by your work and your word. But this woman wanted me to feel small on my own slab of concrete, so I smiled in a way that made her smirk, because she thought she had won, and I said, "Enjoy your swim." Here is what she did not. No, I had 8 little cameras in the eaves and corners because raccoons are creative and teenagers are curious. I also had a friend from my unit, Officer Owen Briggs, now a patrolman in our county, and I had called him the week before to ask a hypothetical question about trespass and false notices. He told me exactly what to document, exactly what lines not to cross, and he said if it escalates, call it in and I will try to be the one who shows up if I can. That evening, sun going down, I heard sirens. For a second I thought it was over. That common sense had finally found our block. I went outside and saw 2 patrol cars at the curb, lights bouncing off the stucco. Madison stood at the driveway pointing at me, dripping in her one piece like. She had sprinted out of my yard to flag them down. "That is him!" she yelled. "He threatened me and my family. He is dangerous." The officers moved in with the posture that makes your shoulders tense whether you are guilty or not. One asked me to step forward. He said they had a report of harassment and trespassing. Behind him, I saw Owen's eyes catch mine, recognition flicker, and he gave the tiniest shake of the head that said, "Play it straight. I have this." Madison strutted forward, waving her laminated masterpiece like a magic scroll. "Arrest him," she demanded. "He is trespassing in my pool on my property." The taller officer, not Owen, kept his voice level and asked if she was claiming the property as hers. She said yes with the confidence of a person who has never been challenged, and she waved the paper again. The officer took it, turned it over, to the streetlights, and that is when the whole play started to wobble. You could see the cartoon seal, the misspelling of the county name, even a faint watermark from a free template site. He lifted an eyebrow. "Ma'am, this is not a legal document. This is not close." She doubled down, shouting that you do not need papers because the association makes the rules and the pool belongs to the neighborhood. Her friends, who had been nodding along, started to look like maybe they had backed the wrong horse. Owen finally spoke. He said he had run the records before they came out. He said this property, including the pool, is legally owned by Mr. Reed. Title transferred last month. His name is on the deed. The way Madison froze was almost cinematic. I crossed my arms and kept my voice steady. "You have been trespassing on my land. You have broken into my backyard. You filed a false report. All of it is on camera." The second officer shifted his stance and asked her if she had entered without permission. She tried to pivot, tried to call me a squatter who just pretended to own the place, but the words came out thin. Owen stepped closer, not menacing, just certain. "Ma'am, you called us to arrest the wrong man. The person in front of you is the owner and a decorated veteran, and he knows the law well enough to let us do our job." She tried to swing back with the rules line again, and that was when the taller officer tore the fake notice in half. His voice cracked through the air like a starter pistol. "There are no association rules here. This neighborhood is not under an association." A couple of people who had been watching from across the street looked at each other like someone had pulled a rug out from under them. One of Madison's friends whispered, "Then what has she been handing out to us all this time?" Now the street started to fill. Curtains opened, doors eased wide, and soon there was a half circle of faces. People had not said a word when she barked at them about lawn height and garbage cans, but the sight of red and blue on the curb gives folks the courage to step onto porches. A woman named Tasha called out across the hood of a car, "So all those fines were fake." A guy in a baseball cap waved a stack of papers and said she made me pay $300 for having my grill on the front porch. Murmurs thickened into anger. Phones came out, little red dots blinking, the world shrinking into viewfinders. I could have rubbed it in. I could have told her I warned you. Instead, I pulled up the clips on my phone. I showed the officers and anyone who could see the angle. There she was, climbing my gate, dragging her friends in, sticking fake notices to doors, splashing and laughing and telling me I was the outsider. She lunged like she wanted to snatch the phone, but the officer stepped between us and said very simply that if she touched me or my property again, she would be in handcuffs tonight. The way her shoulders fell told me the game had shifted for good. The officers took statements. They wrote an incident report. They told Madison she would need to come in for questioning. When the radio crackled and the words "bring her in" came through, her face lost all its color. I do not say that with joy. Watching someone realize they are not untouchable is uncomfortable, even when they have made your life harder than it needed to be. She tried a last speech about how someone has to keep order around here. I asked if she meant protect it or control it. She had no answer. In the days that followed, the neighborhood felt like it exhaled. People started comparing notes, turns. Out Madison had been printing all kinds of nonsense. Little official-looking things that told people what to plant and where to park and when to mow. She had invented an entire bureaucracy in her head and then handed it out like Halloween candy. The more folks compared, the more ridiculous it sounded, and the more it stung that they had gone along with it because they did not want trouble. I met with a real attorney, A guy named Victor who wears the same gray suit like it is armor. He told me to keep everything documented and to send a formal notice to Madison and to the neighbors that my property was private and recorded. We wrote it plain. No threats, no grandstanding, just facts. I also called the county office to verify the status of any association for our street. The clerk laughed, not cruelly, just tired, and said we have had 3 calls about that this month. There is no association. If you see one, tell it I would like to meet it. Then something I did not expect happened. People started using the space between our houses for the first time like it belonged to them rather than to a pretend rule book. Tasha asked if she could bring her kids over on